The world had watched rockets leap skyward for decades, their fire and thunder symbols of exploration, yet when Artemis stood on the launch pad for its most ambitious mission, something felt different in the air, a strange heaviness that even the most seasoned engineers and astronauts could not name, because this was not just another step to the moon or a routine test of technology. This was the beginning of a journey whispered about in secrecy, a voyage not to chart familiar territory but to answer questions that had haunted science for generations, questions about the red planet, Mars, whose desolate beauty had lured dreamers for centuries, whose blood-colored surface had stirred both hope and dread, and whose silence, more profound than any void humanity had yet encountered, had resisted every probe, every rover, every camera lens aimed at it, returning nothing but a stillness too absolute, a silence too perfect. As if something were deliberately suppressing the echoes of life, of history, of memory. And so as Artemis roared to life, its engines carving light against the dawn, billions on Earth cheered without knowing that its payload carried not merely exploration tools but classified instruments built to pierce silence itself, devices born out of data long buried in archives labeled unconfirmed anomalies, where strange fluctuations had been detected near Mars's poles, where sensors had once picked up harmonic vibrations in the thin air that resembled tones too structured to be wind, too ordered to be coincidence. And now Artemis ascended like a steel leviathan tearing into the sky, leaving Earth shrinking behind as it cut through the void, carrying aboard a select few who knew that this mission was less about science and more about confrontation with an enigma older than human memory, because Mars had always been there, staring at Earth like a red eye across the night. Its surface scarred with canyons deeper than oceans, its mountains higher than Everest, its dried riverbeds whispering of waters long gone. But the deeper mystery was not what had vanished, but what remained, and why. Because satellites had mapped structures half buried in sand that looked too angular, too precise, as though they were ruins eroded by time, and yet official reports dismissed them as illusions of light and shadow. And astronauts preparing for Artemis had read fragments of transmissions from older missions that seemed to stop mid-sentence, replaced by static, as if someone or something had silenced the words before they could be spoken. And now as Artemis crossed the gulf of space, instruments humming, astronauts watching Mars grow larger against the blackness, its surface glowing faintly beneath the sun's cold fire, every heartbeat on that ship knew they were heading not just into alien dust but into a silence that felt alive. A silence that pressed against the edges of human perception like a wall, and though the world below imagined this as progress, as triumph, those on board felt something else rising within them, an instinct older than reason, a primal warning that perhaps Mars was not empty, perhaps Mars was not dead, perhaps Mars had been waiting, and Artemis, with all its courage and all its technology, was about to learn what kind of truth could hide inside a silence so vast it stretched across a planet. And as Artemis drifted further into the cold abyss, each kilometer closing the gap between humanity and the blood-red world, the crew found the silence of space itself beginning to feel heavier, as though Mars's own aura was reaching out long before they entered orbit, an invisible veil pressing against the ship's hull, dimming even the electronic hum of their instruments, a silence not born of emptiness but of deliberate suppression, like an unseen hand muting the very fabric of existence. And the astronauts, though trained to be stoic, exchanged glances that betrayed unease, because their monitors had begun to pick up irregular pulses, not noise, not static, but structured intervals, faint rhythms beneath the silence, so precise that even the most skeptical among them could not dismiss them as coincidence. And mission control back on Earth, watching the data stream with tense eyes, fell into hushed argument, half the analysts insisting it was nothing more than solar interference, half whispering that this was the very signature they had come to confirm, the echo of those anomalies buried in unconfirmed files. And as Artemis pushed onward, the red planet swelling in the viewport, the astronauts began to feel a strange vibration running through the deck, so subtle it could have been dismissed as a trick of nerves, yet it repeated at exact intervals, like the heartbeat of something vast and hidden. And when they tried to cross-check with their instruments, they found the data corrupted, numbers rearranged into patterns resembling geometric codes, lines forming grids that no natural process should create. And suddenly the silence outside the ship did not feel like absence but like a waiting presence, something aware, something watching, something that had been still until humanity dared to come too close, and as they prepared to enter orbit, the ship's AI issued a warning, not of collision, not of fuel, but of signal contamination. A phrase no one had ever programmed it to use, words pulled from a data stream no human could trace, and the captain, his voice calm yet brittle, ordered the systems to continue as planned, though in his eyes there flickered the same dread that had haunted the archives for decades, the dread that Mars was not simply a barren world but a guardian of something buried beneath its sands, something that used silence as its armor, something that had waited through the ages for the moment when humans, bold and blind, would arrive to disturb it, and now that moment had come, and Artemis, drifting into orbit, carrying its secret instruments and its fragile crew, was about to learn what it meant to awaken a silence that was never meant to be broken.